This is part 2 of the video book Do I Stand Alone? It contains writings dealing with religion, and if you are not open-minded about such things, you should not read. This book is part of Project, A New World.
16. I sometimes amuse myself by thinking how different some religions could be if our ancestors found, say, a near totally complete and intact Tyrannosaurus skeleton, like they recently found in Montana, USA. If such things were found in the Valley of the Kings, what in the world would the religious leaders of the time make of that? Say they only found one. I could imagine them thinking it was the devil or some evil beast from hell and killed by God. Who knows? The T-Rex could have been worshipped as a god. We will never know, and I think I am grateful for that. From what I can see, all the large bone fragments that were found in the old world by early man were used to support the belief in dragons. Speaking of the devil and his associates, I often think of them and their part in the story. God is all-powerful and could make everything be gone with a thought, but he allows this, just for the Christians I do believe, could be wrong on that. I don't know if they have the devil in Islam or Judaism, but the Christians are very sure of him and are in a constant battle with him, so to speak. I was reminded of him constantly as a child. The one thing about the devil that has always bothered me is how well-behaved he is. They say he is all evil and powerful enough to do battle with God, yet he has absolutely zero abilities in the physical world. All his works only come from the mind and actions of a man. You would think the most willing person to worship the devil could just lift a feather with their faith, but no, they can't. We know God does not give that power to a human, but why not the devil? Why is he so well behaved? I love how some Christians use, "the devil made me do it," when they get caught doing something they shouldn't. How many pastors of the past were caught breaking the law or committing major sin? And there they are, crying in the camera, blaming the devil and asking for forgiveness. Christians are all about forgiveness, and not long after, that pastor or a priest that hurt a child is back in business. I see the blinders that believers put on in relation to faith leaders being guilty of any wrongdoing and are always willing to put them right back to service for God. My father would classify the big TV preachers of the time by how much they would ask for money. He would call some pastors the money-hungry ones and would never watch them. My father sent me off for a lifetime of being mindful of greed in some faiths and church leaders. 17. For many years there has been money offered to anyone that could show a true feat of magic of any size. I know some tried, but it was always found out to not be real. Standing here today, I don't believe in any type of real magic. I have several things I put in that category as well, like ghosts, time travel, anti-gravity, clairvoyance, telekinesis, and the other host of mental abilities. I also have a hard time with things such as wormholes in space, teleportation of physical matter. I do hope for wormholes for future space travelers, but think we have to start with what we can do now. I'm aware we use time dilation for systems like GPS, but question anything much more than that. I see space aliens have made a comeback recently. I try to keep an open mind on that subject because I believe and support that there is life out there other than what's on Earth. My question is more on the complexity and evolved intelligence of that life, and if there is other planets that intelligent life has formed. And yes, I know intelligence is a debatable subject, but I'm using it in a simple context in these writings. If these small objects darting around our skies are aliens, I believe they would have to have gone through the same steps as us. I'm not buying they just zip through some portal and they are in another galaxy. That falls in my no magic box. If they are from another world, they would need to bring what they need for long-term survival. Their ship would need to support them for multiple generations. It is also near impossible in my mind to have a ship that travels through space, then dips into a planet's atmosphere and just starts buzzing around. They would need to deal with gravity and G-force just like us. Look how much thought NASA had to put into just simply flying a drone on Mars. They had to take into account the difference in atmosphere between what we have on Earth versus Mars. I think if those are alien ships bouncing around in Earth's sky, they would have to be unmanned, so to speak, or they would be subject to the laws of inertia and many others, just as we would. To think they defeated gravity starts to dip in my no magic box. I'm not closing my mind to the possibility, but it's going to take a lot more than some grainy video to make me believe. I think that any intelligent life would need to develop over time like us. They would have similar conditions to overcome in space travel, like radiation and the immense distances. They would need to have intelligence with physical capabilities to build and construct things. In looking at a civilization of intelligent beings that could travel across space, I am positive that even at our stage of development, we would still appear primitive to them. We often see aliens with maybe tentacles or claw hands, and it just would be difficult for them to make a spacecraft or near anything else. Lastly, I just wonder why they mostly have these iconic shapes from our space stories and this obsession with flashing lights. Why would they waste energy in flashing lights that would only serve to give them away and then dart off? So then it's either they are toying with us, or we have people with a mixture of either deception, imagination, or attention-seeking. I think a realist should keep an open mind and just continue on cautiously and not overreact until we know for sure what we are dealing with. I know they would need to deal with the same issues we would if we ever visited another living world. The main one is that they are an invasive species in every way to Earth, and they would have no control in the attacks and transformation their living bodies would be subjected to. The instant they expose themselves to our world, the life forms and complexity of Earth would begin to negotiate with their cells. The biggest hurdle for them would not be us, but the microscopic life forms on Earth. That is their true first step. I know if they had the intelligence to travel here, they would know better than open the door and exit unprotected from their craft. I see where we need to go to become a true traveler of barren and living worlds, and know that future man will be aware and hopefully able to acclimate themselves over time to step on the surface of a new living world, but I'm sure it will be scary in ways most people today can't imagine without education and understanding. 18. I look at how the various religions have chosen works of art to represent God or Jesus. This is strange to me since there have been artists throughout time, and yet nobody had Jesus sit for even a portrait or sculpture. All those gatherings, and not one artist in the crowd excited at what they saw and wanted to memorialize what they saw like artists have done throughout time. We have artists capturing life since the first cave paintings, and plenty of other people memorialized by paints, marble and stone while alive. Why not the accepted Son of God? Look at how the early artists show God, an old white human male in cellular decay. I understand it partially since men decided they looked like a god, but why an old white man and not a man in his peak condition? Maybe it was an effort to show a loving yet strong man that has the wisdom of time, the grandfather type figure, I guess. I look at all the various artist depictions of religious fables approved by the early church and think of how it mainly only represents one race of people from the beginning to the Last Supper. One of the most important features of religion is to give you a small peek into your future life after death. Religious authors thought it was important to give the faithful a vision to reach for. So we have roads of bright gold, foundations of gemstones, and the gates made from pearls, or something like that from what I remember. People wanted to live like a king, obviously, because they probably struggled with securing food, disease, and sickness in their life. This vision probably seemed pretty good when combined with everlasting life. I ask myself, why does heaven have a gate? Why is there even a wall, and why would God need to build one? Makes sense when thinking back to our ancestors. Tall walls and gates on cities was security at the time. It made the residents feel safer, so it only makes sense in viewing from the perspective of the people that first wrote of such things. Those are just some examples of me seeing more man than God in ancient writings. It's like they lacked imagination other than their intent of control, enrichment, and power they wished for themselves. 19. If you can say anything about religion, it's that it has done a great job of making people believe in the next life, the good one. We are all programmed because of our fears of death that you will have some kind of next life. If you obey the rules in this one, you will get to be forever happy and godlike in the next, to one degree or another. So everyone is just waiting for death. Every Sunday we get together and celebrate our next life and how great it will be. They are all fine with following the rules that man told them so they can move on. They literally spend their whole life in service to this better next life that they were told about. Unfortunately, some believe that if they do what they see as God's will, they will try to make him pleased with them in the life they lived. This is especially true when they encounter a non-believer in their particular faith. They come to think they have the right to send you to God for punishment. They are the correct messenger, and you are not. For one reason or another, billions of people today think of this life as nothing more than a pit stop, and we just have eyes on the next. Some poor souls become so convinced that they choose to end their life early, so to skip ahead, because this life is too hard and they can be happy in the next one. I know the texts tell them it's wrong, but they don't care or believe that part. One thing you have to admit is the picking and choosing people do with their beliefs and in their faiths. 20. Okay, so far you're saying you believe in God, but not what any religious text tells you about him, yes. When I look at the Bible, for instance, since that is what I'm most familiar with, I see nothing but man. I see his wants and needs of the time they were made. Honestly, to use a modern term, the Bible and alike were written by a bunch of Karens. The micromanagement is off the charts in some of our most popular religious books and documents. I know it's filled with a lot of symbolism, but it is just too filled with advice from a man's mind. Why would the creator of the universe care what fabric you used in your clothing? Look how deep in the weeds they get in every tiny facet of your daily life. At the same time, I believe religious teachings were probably necessary at the time because people wanted to know what everything was and not be scared. I also believe religions have unleashed horrible, never-ending violence of man against man. For as long as man believes it's possible to perform acts that would please God, we are doomed. We can't continue to live in a world of 2 billion Christians hating 2 billion Muslims with the thorn of a third group that dislikes both and pits them both against each other, and all the rest of us caught up in the middle of this religious war. I see even Buddhists and Muslims are now in conflict in some parts of the world. Look at how powerful some of our weapons of war and how single individuals can control them. One man or a small group can kill millions in an instant now. That is what scares me most right now, only because no time in history was that ever possible, until now. War always took time and a lot of people to participate, but now it could happen in hours and just a handful of people. How many times have you heard the world is too wicked, and that's why God has not come back? One small group, or one very smart man, with a lifetime of work, could take us all out someday if this religious hate continues to exist, and we remain bunched up on this one rock in space. 21. I come back to what do we know is true so far? That something is responsible for the creation of the universe and everything in it. This is way more than what the current religion started with, initially with God created man, earth, and the heavens. Why would God make such an immense space and put us only on one little speck of it? What or who was all the rest for? When he placed us on the earth, why did we not possess the ability, including intelligence, to live and use all of space? If he is all-knowing, he would know that he gave us the intelligence to venture out into space eventually. So basically, I believe we start with God created the universe and set forth the process of expansion and the establishment of life. This I believe to be true, and I believe even a person of science could support such a thought. To see the real miracle of God as being the fact that just a few cells of life over billions of years can endlessly evolve and transform to become us, and all the life on earth here today, is the true miracle of creation. Not a God that punched up everything in a week and planted us as rulers of everything, and the entire universe revolves around just man on earth. How unbelievable is that thinking to a person living in the 21st century? You need to only look through our history to see the continuous stream of men that either ruled as a divine figure or used religion to declare themselves as a divine chosen ruler. That is how this all started, and you need only to look with an open mind to see it. Men have been using the concept of God for ruling for centuries in one way or another. If you look across the spectrum of problems we have today, this concept of the earth and its inhabitants being a gift from God to man is largely to blame for many things. How can we stop the harm and extinction of life when over half the world thinks they are divinely chosen and everything on earth is our gift because it was all made for us to use and control? To sit and believe that you are above all the creatures of the earth and they are a gift of God to you is insane to think of in a modern world. We all know that all those creatures of the world are what makes it possible for you to even exist. We are abusing a system of life that has been evolving for millions of years since the earth cooled, and we need to stop questioning why so many things are now going wrong. It's a shame that we became intelligent enough to ruin everything on a global scale before we became knowledgeable enough to save ourselves from ourselves. There is still chance, but unless we emerge a new world of understanding in time, we are in serious trouble. 22. I love the sense we have in the concept of Mother Nature. I like that we tend to give it the sense of a caring woman and embrace the sense of her with absolute respect for the process, even when it goes against us, personally. I know the realities are hard to see or deal with, but it's an ingenious system that works, and with education and understanding you can see the beauty of it all. If you learn the workings of the planet that has evolved to support life, you realize the processes that make it possible on a planetary scale. You, with understanding, don't view each earthquake, storm, or volcanic eruption as a punishment, but they are the natural workings of a living planet, and it must do these type of things in its continuous processes of combining the elements of the universe with the organic ingredients of life into new substances that might only exist on Earth or a planet like Earth. And once you learn this, you will realize how a real functioning, life-producing planet is much more than just atmosphere. We are only now understanding that things like the Great Lakes, Rocky Mountains, and other geological formations will disappear someday, and something else will be in its place. The large objects that came from space that formed our planet and are part of a process will never stop coming. Thank goodness for friction in removing the bulk of these objects before they land on Earth. We need to realize that process and begin to understand the work and knowledge it's going to take if we want to feel safe in our world from the more destructive large meteorological events. No man had any of this knowledge and understanding even a few hundred years ago like we do today. I don't pray to Mother Nature or give her money directly. I don't have an image of her in my mind, except maybe a tree. I believe the sense of Mother Nature is widely accepted by everyone. If we are to build a new sense of God from one of the Bible, we need to be able to identify and recognize a relatable experience of the physical presence of the Creator, and I use nature for this. People will always need a place that they can feel the presence of that which made everything we have possible. We need to be able to feel its presence and maybe indirectly give thanks, since that appears to give people comfort. I just think we need to get a way of asking and expecting actions from God. It's really not that kind of relationship, even though you want that so bad. I would never say there is nothing out there, because as much as I can imagine we have what we can see and touch, I must be willing to say anything else may be possible. We just need to stop acting like we know the unknown exists and give it labels, then to use it to control or sell something to others that you able to make believe it's real and you have the ability to give it to them for a price. So I always will leave room for the unexplainable, or miracle as people like to say, as being possible, but not something we can literally attribute to a belief system and then believe you can feed, control, and regulate it in your life. Until we learn more, we must acknowledge the unknown for what it is, but don't ever claim to be in control of it, or make others believe you have a way to give it to others. No more people selling and marketing the unknown to others, or to use the fear of the unknown to control others while lifting yourself up with it. The one belief I hold is that God made all things, and that includes the sense of Mother Nature as the designer and caretaker of all life processes. I think we can use an already established concept and incorporate it into a new belief system, and believing that free God is part of. The Mother Nature concept to me and is the basic instincts or instructions from the time of creation that all life forms have. That basic instinct to survive that is ingrained is every living cell. From the smallest microorganism to the blue whale, we all share the core instincts to survive. This also includes our natural drive to reproduce and the continuation of or development of the species. I know some people pray to nature, but I'm not talking about anything like that at all. I'm just looking to the sense of Mother Nature as being the force of life, but not as a physical being at all. I think the average person feels a special feeling in relation to our Earth, and that feeling you have but maybe can't explain, of enjoying time outside, hiking in the woods or desert, watching the sunset or sunrise, the view from a hill or mountaintop. You feel a sense of comfort in your mind without anyone even saying a word. That's it. I think the feeling of bliss that many feel is the instinctual connection that we have with our Creator. And somehow these ancient instincts carried across millions of cycles of life making new life are able to give you that natural sense of comfort, not only in your mind, but body as well. You notice that the instant you start filling your mind with thoughts of the day or of life, the blissful feeling fades a bit and you enter back into the humdrum of daily life, but you remember the tranquility of that moment and use that as your baseline of mental comfort. It's an amazing feeling that many that don't believe in God because of religion miss out on, and I think that no matter how logical you like to feel you are, it can feel good to allow in a little dream of little more than what we can witness. If you do believe in God, maybe you could think how nice it would be to give this little thought of hope to your children someday and give them a believable life concept of truly treating everyone on earth as equals, and you have the opportunity to be anything in life if you put your mind to it. 23. How many people alive today are thinking about people 1,000 or 10,000 years from now? I see the concern from the scientists, but where is the passion of the majority for the life we leave for them? Do you think of how Earth will be for them? We see the changes we have made to the Earth in, say, the last 200 years. If we thought back to the time of Jesus, is there anything they did that ruined a part of Earth, besides maybe our sanity? I can't think of a thing they did back then that affected the physical world around us today, other than some pyramids in the desert. Now, can you say the same thing for someone living on Earth 2,000 years from now, in thinking of what we are doing to the planet right now? I sometimes imagine what the number one thing that someone from the future would come back in time to ask us to stop. Would it be fracking or just oil drilling in general? Will it be something with the oceans or the rainforest? Did we permanently destroy all the coral reefs at some point? Will it be a pathogen that accidentally got out, or of course the big one, nuclear war? There are so many things that could be possible, yet most people are in denial of any harm we are causing, from environmental to psychological matters, I think for a few main reasons. 1. They firmly believe the earth and all its inhabitants was a gift from God unto man, and he will protect it and us until he returns. Secondly, I think that most believers are held in a constant state of, the return is right around the corner by most faith leaders. It's how they keep you coming back and engaged. They need you to feel like it's near the end, and we need to be ready for the return of God. Then I think he stops the whole universe in time, so there is no more death or births. We lock the door and no more will enter, so that whole system will just stop and we cruise off to what? I have no real idea. I think that's the short version anyway. So we basically will soon all get off this rock and cruise to that next good life. And they all are convinced of it. I believe we are living in a dangerous time for thinking like that. To be so involved in your faith bubble that you close your mind to anything else. I don't know how it is in other faiths. Does your particular faith, like the Christians, are always in a constant state of believing we are very close to the end? How can the future humans that must exist on this planet get any help from us now? One thing you can say with surety, that given our current path, things will never change. All future women will be born to a world where they are second-class humans. Man is the primary over women in most religious beliefs. These beliefs continue to feed racism, in which were birthed in the belief that God created one certain race of humans first and then everyone else. We live, go to church, raise a family in service to the church. We financially support the church and its leaders. We don't advance. We wait for God's return. Repeat as necessary. Is that the life you want for our future children? Our future daughters? 24. We start to see some acceptance in some faiths to the age of the earth, but I believe Christians are holding steady at around 6,000 years. Others have sided with science, since their texts didn't seem to lock them into a certain date. In Free God belief system, it acknowledges all the processes it put forth in the formation of the suns and planets, and those first few live cells that enabled with those first core instincts to live, survive, and reproduce. That to me, nature's natural instincts are the commands and instructions of God, and that's it. All this stuff from a man's mind over the years was just for his own benefit. If we could remove the influence of those ancient writings and adopt a new realistic view of creation that is equal for all life, we might be better able to deal with what is going to be necessary for the next step in humanity. It's either that or we just keep going the way we are and destroy the earth with either pollution or wars. When things start getting difficult, do you think the men in power will rise to the occasion, or just want to invade a new country that has better climate or untapped resources? We haven't even hit the real bad parts of climate change, and I already hear talks of taking over Greenland and other areas of the world from the same minds that tell us climate change is fake news. You know, the ones that disabled our scientists and doctors trying to keep us safe from the next pathogens and tried telling people the benefits of horse medicine amid a pandemic. Do you really want those people in charge of your future? Are we going to start fighting for Antarctica when it starts growing vegetation on its surface again? You know it used to, but this time around it won't be pretty. I'm sure the ground will be soaked in human blood, just like all the centuries of man and their divine rulers in the old world. 25. Even to this day, we, with all our current knowledge, we cannot make life. We do not possess that unique ability that came only from God. Scientists can manipulate live cells and can control and change live cells, but we cannot make life from nothing, and in that tiny fact, I see Free God. It shows a unique, only held by Free God power and magic that nobody or nothing since has been able to reproduce. I'm no expert on the Big Bang Theory, but it makes sense to me in my limited knowledge of the various sciences. I believe that it could be the start of anything and everything. This is also where I can think of multiple possibilities. The first is that Free God could be the reason for the Big Bang. There was an entity, we have no idea its form, that gave itself or put its power into the void to give us the beginnings of the universe. It was immense and immediate. It cast the elements throughout the universe. It produced the force to get everything moving. In that event, there was a precious component, and it was those first cells of life itself cast across the new universe. Did those precious cells come to rest only here on Earth, or is there other places that life was able to catch hold? We don't know that yet. I'm interested in the big question. Did another form of life, or better yet, some form of complex, intelligent life take hold anywhere else? Does this mean free God is dead? No, of course not, but we need to have an open mind to it being a one-time event, or there is a plan for the future. We need to look at what is real and what is needed to reach these answers. I think that we need to follow what seems to be an undeniable instinct that humans seem to have, in that we are explorers by natural instinct. In that realization, I think we are driven to know what is in space and may be part of a plan. If we were not so caught up in the fables of the past, we might be open-minded enough to see other possibilities. What if the plan is much bigger than even us on Earth? What if this is supposed to be a period of education and discovery instead of this dead-end religious life cycle that some have going? If you could open your mind to a plan that might include us learning every little detail of the various life forms, physical and theoretical matter we have here on Earth, is meant to teach us how to travel space and to learn the rest of it, that a plan could be that we are meant to be way more than we are, but we need to learn more before we are ready. Maybe we need to evolve to the next step of life that looks at the universe and sees opportunities and not a barrier. To see that the Earth was not made for man, but the universe was made for any of those first cells that could evolve enough to be able to explore and settle across it. This endless opportunity is right there, and you just need to see it as a plan that you could live a happy life believing and supporting, that you start showing your support for God by believing in science and what it has taught us so far. You know that science is not perfect and changes with time. Even what we believe to be history changes over time. Look how our understanding of dinosaurs has evolved, and each new understanding takes time and continual education. Eventually, we can all learn the truths of this world from the assumed like that crude oil is just dead dinosaurs, but in fact, it's from ancient algae and other organic matter more than anything. You see, we can make fuel from plants instead of drilling that old carbon out of the ground, but the powers to be rather support, drill baby drill. They rather you continue to pay profits and taxes for your daily power needs instead of the unlimited wireless tax-free energy that free God gives you from the sun, wind, and water of the earth. That is what I'm asking, instead of century after century of grinding down the resources of the earth while living this fable life until something or someone comes and resets the clock by destroying all life on the surface of earth. No matter what, we will only destroy us though. There is enough life in the ground to rebirth the vegetation and life forms of the earth eventually, but this round of humans will not be a part of it. If there is a plan that we are living, it may still be thousands and thousands of years from now and impossible for us to envision standing here today. The religions of the world only make sense in the mind of a man looking for power, income, and to feel the sense of divine worship that flows through them. Look at how some churches allow certain humans to reach the point of being prayed to like a god. They venomously demand that you only pray to one God, but slip in the thought of special men and rulers as being divine inspired, that you should acknowledge them in your praying, or that they were special above other men. This then becomes leaders, and the blood of these leaders was important because it was noble blood, and we have seen the effect of people believing they were better than other men, and the problems of that belief throughout history. The abuse of religion over time in enriching certain men and families with power is obvious to those with a modern education and not standing in a faith bubble. 26. Now that you see my views on Mother Nature, that it is a command originating from free God in the form of natural instinct. We all agree there is a natural instinct to all living things, including the smallest form of life. Those core instructions are to live, find a way to survive, and reproduce. Those are instructions carried directly from free God in its most primitive form. If humans wish to follow God's word, they need only to listen. Instead, many religious leaders choose to view nature as just beasts and man is above them. I think this is why they are blind to the message. I look at how we treated animals in our zoos when I was young, mostly locked pacing in a small cage. I saw people objecting to the treatment of animals in circuses. I must admit that when I was young, I didn't see the problem with circuses, partially because of my religious belief that man was above beasts, and I liked circuses. I saw how we were told all the earth was given to man from God to rule over, but I now see them as a living miracle from free God. They are a living organism that contributed and made our existence possible, and we need and must respect them more. I'm not a vegan or anything like that. I'm an omnivore like all those before me. I know many wish nature and survival was this happy fest of only life that lasts forever, but it's just not like that. My mind recognizes the living force of all life, even plants, which vegans kill and eat without giving it a thought. So it's just a matter of understanding and acceptance of the entire life cycle of all living matter. I just think we need to respect nature more and try to do as little harm as we can to it, and protect areas that we have set aside for animals to continue living the life free God gave them as well as us. We need to realize we need to find a balance between our lives and nature because we can't do this without it all working just like it has been for millions of years. You need to see the connection between life and the planet itself. The life on the surface affects the Earth and how it reacts. You need to see how the smallest organisms on Earth can have huge global impact and are imperative for your continued enjoyment of life and not your property, or for you to claim dominion over. We only just now started to realize what free God has even created, but we don't even have a total handle on that yet. The one thing I'm positive about is that free God has not spoken to us. Could it communicate in the future? I don't know. What if the grand plan is we must evolve to travel space and find other life outposts and join with them? What if the plan of free God is much bigger than anyone can imagine? Let me ask you this. If you could imagine what I am telling you is the way it really is, what more would you need to know? To live a happy, productive life, what happens in death? I'm sorry, but I can't tell you that. Nobody can. I'm sorry that is the way it is, but did you ever think that maybe everyone doesn't want the same thing? I listened to how they described heaven to me, and it didn't sound like something I wanted to do forever. My personal vision of the afterlife is what I personally like in life, and not what others want. Maybe you could see that it's intended to be an individual choice, and not a certain one-size-fits-all idea that a man sold you for the cost of 10% of your income for life. The one thing I do know is that free God has not asked a thing from you, man has. Free God has made no promises. Again, that was all from a man. Free God to this point has given you everything and has asked for nothing but those core instincts of live, survive, and reproduce. Do you think free God, the creator of all there is, would have to play around if it wanted to be worshipped like a traditional god? If or when the creator of all there is were to speak to us, I believe it would be with the power of 1 billion suns and not whispered in the mind of man. Life is not this game that man has orchestrated for us. It's always the same thing. God is all-powerful, but a man always does the talking. Why would you think the creator of the universe would need to play games if it was so vital? Since when have you believed a power like that would just whisper their wishes or commands? Free God is based on not a God that wants to be worshipped, but an entity that gave you everything, promised you nothing, and has only asked you to live, survive, and reproduce. I know some believers would not do well with all this, and that is understandable. They were born into it just like the rest of us. I don't believe just because you find out that it was not the way they said, you can't find comfort in free God. I hear believers say that they don't know how a non-believer doesn't go mad without Jesus in their heart. Well, thousands of civilizations did just fine before Jesus or any other faiths. You see, I believe that sense of contentment we have in nature is free God. That feeling of wanting to return to nature a lot of us feel. Could you be happy living a nice, healthy life and returning yourself to the dust when you pass? Would you harm someone in this life just because a man told you God wants it? There is our problem. As long as a man or group of men claim to know the will of God and tell others to act in God's name, we have a problem. This problem is worse now more than any time in history because of the power one man or group of men possesses today. The main thing is that we need to just try to bring faith to a more realistic one. In free God, the door is still open to a plan after life and a possible existence, but we just can't pretend to know exactly what that is anymore. Man just can't handle those beliefs without killing his fellow man over them. So I'm not able or going to say there is one thing or another, but I'm positive it's not what they said. Who knows, it could be even better than what they tried to sell you, and you're missing out on those wonderful thoughts. How about the thought of reunification in death with your beloved pets in life? They won't let you have that. Life after death could be anything you imagine and could dream of, and maybe that is the way it's intended and meant to be. You should not assume because you toss in some gold, pearls, and gemstones that I get excited. What good would gold be if there is no need for a monetary system to buy anything? That to me just shows such a primitive thought process, and what is the most valued thing of the author? So far, the facts of the modern world is showing religion to be fables concocted by early man that was scared of his own shadow and was looking to use fear or worship of the divine to rule. Every twist and turn the earth made in its natural cycles were explained by religious beliefs, but now are a part of sound science. So I think that a simple belief in free God leaves the door open for anything you hope for in death, and why I would like to say, may we meet again. I feel like that states the happiness and possible thought that in death there might be a way to feel the sense of those that went before us, but not live a life of claiming to know exactly one thing or another and convince others you're right. You see, we all don't want the same things in life, and we don't all want the same things in death. We should all go with what we think is right for you and what you want to believe. We are different, and maybe that is the way we need to think of death. It's an individual choice. Now that you can get a feeling of where I am at, I would like you to think about a new possible world. No longer would girls be born into a world that they don't have as equal standing as a man. We can finally agree that all men and women are equal. All races are created equal, and every person on earth can see themselves in their belief of our creation. No more women being treated without the total respect they deserve. Women deserve to be recognized as equal in all ways and not a creation afterthought. I want all races to feel equal and not believe in the idea of royal blood, and some men are better than others just by the color of their skin, where they are from, or what family they were born in. When Free God created the universe, its gift of life has emerged in an unbelievable amount of organisms. Everything from a tiny single-cell organism to something as big as a blue whale. We all come from those first floating cells. I do believe that humans could be one of Free God's greatest achievements, intelligent life as we currently understand it. Are we the first cells that achieved this level of evolution? Or are there other worlds that have organisms that evolved to traveling in space? Wouldn't it great to be open-minded about anything being possible in the hope of an exciting future for you or continued life on Earth? 27. Now here is where Free God faith goes in a new direction from religions. I believe that we might be special to Free God for that we are uniquely able to use this huge universe it has made. Until we get out there and see for ourselves, we won't know. What would you think if it looks like we are the only ones? Do you think we might be a big part of a creation plan that we don't understand yet? I see us as evolving to be able to protect life on Earth from the next extinction event, hopefully, and maybe someday in a distant future, maybe protect life somewhere else. The elements of the universe will continue to do their thing, but we can see how fragile the living are. In Free God, I see the possibility of it wanting us to use our intelligence to eventually spread life and humans throughout the universe. What if we someday identify another living planet that is in danger that we are capable of helping? In reality, I think acclimating to another living world will be challenging, and starting fresh will take billions of years, but we have no idea what advancements we will have in 10 centuries or 10 millennia. We either can find ways to cover immense distances faster than we can imagine now, or we need to create an ecosphere that can support life on a trip to another galaxy. It appears we started by using animal skins to survive the cold. We will adapt to other worlds. We know to start we will have to survive in shelters, but I hope that it will lead to large functional ecosystems. With every decade and century of exploring, we will see the opportunity for more and more people to have choices of the type of life they want and give them a chance to literally live in the stars. What else will we find out there? I think it's our instinct as an explorer species to see and complete the task to live, survive, and reproduce, and not die sitting on this planet over and over forever. You probably don't see the need to leave Earth, but you need to recognize what we now know. Life is precious and seems to be very rare as we currently see it. Maybe we are unique in the universe, even more reason for us to leave to protect or spread life in the universe. We now know how frail life can be on a planet. There is nothing between us and an asteroid or comet half the size of the moon coming close to us or even hitting us. We know how close life came to being snuffed out on Earth, as many as 5 times. Even today, we could not save ourselves for sure. We just have not recognized that as a possibility, at least enough of us to take any meaningful action to protect us. There are some programs, but not enough. We need to ensure the survival of possibly the only sign of life, not to mention the possibly more rare intelligent life. I don't want the only life on our planet to start over, to be a cockroach, but until we drop the baggage of our ancestors, I'm afraid Free God's miracle will not be given a chance to survive. We just need to remove man from God because God men equal to Free God. Since this all started, everyone has been just carrying on what our ancestors started. There are no bad people here. 2008. Often when I was young in church, I would witness someone coming to God. I would hear them talk about the sense of warmth and comfort when they let Jesus into their heart. This was something I would never experience, even with how open I was to it happening. I was in a strange place of believing in God but not religion through most of my adult life. During that time, I was able to drop my belief in the devil, and I felt like this big weight was lifted off me. I thought about how I would explain it to someone, but it's difficult. One way was, if you ever had a bill you could not pay for a long time, you don't think of it while busy with life, but every once in a while, maybe just before sleep, or when your mind quiets, it pops in and ruins your blissful moment. It's just one of those things that is in the background constantly, but then comes the day you finally are able to pay it, and you get that deep sense of relief. The day I decided to drop my fears based in religion and then eventually believed in free God, it was one of the most uplifting moments that I've had in life. I didn't think about the devil anymore, or if what I was doing or not doing would make God unhappy with me. I was lifted from the weight that I had to live my life a certain way, or I will be punished forever. I just can't explain how freeing it was for me to experience that. 29. I know the way we typically bury people is a small-scale continuation of wanting everlasting life. Lots of believers have faith they will rise from the grave. I just don't see this as an option moving forward. If we are now thinking of living the long term on Earth, we can't be holding a space on Earth forever. We have to feel comfortable dying on another planet or in space and not being flown back to Earth to be buried. How many bodies are we going to have rotting in the ground in 10,000 years? It's not practical for us to continue to store corpses in the ground forever. I think of all those corpses of people that died of past plagues and how they are now thawing in areas that are permafrost and not buried deep. Are these corpses going to birth a new wave of death? From what I see in nature, nothing dead is allowed to survive forever. Nature allows the absorption of all living matter back into the earth, and it is transformed or gone forever. Only because of use wanting to prop up the thought of returning to life someday, we try to shield our dead from Earth's natural processes. I plan on being cremated and think that may be better for the Earth in the long run. You can erect whatever monument of your existence you want or can afford to have maintained forever, but we should not keep your body forever. Look at how many people were buried centuries ago to only end up a skull on a shelf somewhere. You want to imagine someone touching your remains in 1,000 years? Can you imagine the fury of the past leaders of Egypt if they knew they were going to be a museum exhibit in a foreign land of a conquering nation as their serious religious beliefs are trampled on by those of a new faith that have no respect for theirs? So see how that works, and over time, religions that ruled for thousands of years are now replaced. Nothing is forever, and people can change, but only if you give them something new to change and move to. 30. I know the gravity of telling the human race that they are talking to themselves when praying. It's not your fault. You were raised with it, and you didn't realize what was going on in your mind. You will be just fine. Could you continue to pray? Sure, why not? It's always going to feel better to mentally talk things out in your mind with the feeling that God is listening. Just don't use prayer or visions to put words in free God's voice. You can use prayer to help you in times of distress. Free God belief would never say you can't pray. We are all programmed to call for God in our deepest moments of stress, and that will never change. Just realize that you can't just pray and leave it in God's hands anymore. That will not help your sick child at all. Seek medical help, please. To the next mother of a dead child from a school shooting, don't send thoughts and prayers anymore. You see, we need to realize that you need to help yourself or get help. Praying is not helping. I don't wish for the rent to be paid, then let it go. It doesn't work like that. You can't just pray for rent, you need to do something. So please don't use prayer as your only action to help yourself or someone. Instead, work on solving your problem or get real physical help. We all know that good and bad things will happen in and around your life. You can't view everything good as a miracle or everything bad as a punishment anymore. You need to know that you are never punished as well, you are never rewarded either. This is the belief that fuels our world's most horrific acts in people professing to be acting in the name of God and believe their actions are wanted by God, often because of prayer. That man is acting on their own ambitions and wrapping it in God's words in order to get participation. Nobody in position of power in government should ever reference the Bible, prayer, or divine inspiration in their decisions. 31. That is a huge question and problem. Would religious leaders put down their books? Will they put down the gold goblets and come down from their ivory towers? Will the mega church pastor give up one or all his private jets? We all know they have become accustomed to that lifestyle that religion has afforded them. I just don't know if they are ready to believe in free God and give up the power and money religion has given them in their lives, to give their love unconditionally and faithfully with no promise of reward. I don't know if they are willing to give it back to the people. One of the hardest things will be taking on the horrible practice of things like child brides of some faiths. This maybe worked 2,000 years ago, but it is vile and disgusting practice today. No more using religion and traditions to ruin these little girls' lives. The one thing I hope you know, there should be no war with religion. I would never want someone to use my words against a believer and tell them they are wrong. That is not my intent. If a believer rejects free God, leave it alone. Let them read it, but if they reject it, let it be. Everyone has to choose free God because you don't know if they are scared. Fear of the unknown is how we got here. and they might have decades of people they deemed respectable and knowledgeable, instilling that fear in them. People that are older are not going to easily switch tracks this far into their journey, and there is no harm in letting them go in peace, just as long as they are not about or involved in changing government to rule with religious beliefs. That's where the old religious ways must be stopped. No more using faith to govern people. You need to see how certain leaders use fear in politics as well as religion, and that is a powerful tool of intimidation that only non-idolatry education can dismantle.